Okay, so added value is one of the most important things. Okay, now let's assume that you graduated, you have a good job, you work for the leather processor and that supply chain, and you have several large customers, whether they use the leather for shoes and furniture, clothing, and so forth. But unfortunately for you, I'm your boss. And it's Friday morning, and I say, you know what? End of the day, I need from you a report that predicts how much leather we're going to sell over the next 5 years and how much profit we're going to make. And I'll come in around 5 o'clock and I'll pick it up from you. Got to go play golf with my supervisor. And so I leave you there. And you have this tough job to do in a short period of time. What would you do? Well, I mean, you work for a modern company. We have computer systems. You have a nice office, a great computer. You have resources. So you probably get on a computer system, look at sales in different categories, whether it's shoes and furniture and clothing manufacturers, and see what the trends have been, and then put that in Excel. Create some graphs to go along with that, with the numbers to show the increase over the years, and so forth. And you may even call a couple of the key customers to see how everything's going for them. All right? And that's probably a pretty safe thing to do. All right? And then 6 months later, your predictions are way off. All right? So, why could they be off? Well, if your predictions are too high, people aren't buying a lot of leather, well, might be because there's a good substitute that came out. The people who design fashion, furniture and clothes and shoes, leather was last year. They're into something else. Right? There could be a mad cow breakout in another country, and people are afraid to do anything that has to do with leather and cows. All right? So the problem, if sales don't reach what you predict, we'll have all this extra inventory. And we've spent money to create that, and we can't get the money out. And, old inventory can get moldy. Sometimes it disappears and so forth. But what if you underestimate sales? Is that a problem? The market's a lot better than you predicted. Well, that means we don't have enough leather to fill all the demand. So we have to go out and buy leather if we can. So we have lost sales. And even if we can buy some leather, it's probably not the best quality because the best stuff's been picked over. Or the leather, suppliers are going to charge more because they know of the pressure everybody's under. It's a hot commodity. Everybody's buying it. Right? And you should know that oftentimes manufacturing, looks to marketing to give them a prediction of how much sales they're going to have. And from that number, they determine how much they need to buy. So if you don't have enough, we lose sales. If we have too much, we have excess inventory, which costs us money. So what makes it so tough, as I said, it's changes in the marketing environment. All right, so you need to, always keep your pulse on the marketing environment because those changes are important. All right, now it's those changes, okay, especially with the end user, all right, that determines how much we sell, all right, or how much demand there is, I should say, all right. So we call that derived demand, meaning that the demand for, the type of product we're selling, is derived from the end user. And there's been some examples, but here's an older example from the pandemic and 9/11. All right. So, demand for airline flights plunged, especially after 9/11. People were afraid to fly. All right. Who flies a lot? Business people. All right. And consumers, but there's a lot of people who fly for business. So people didn't want to fly anymore. So airlines lost revenue and profit. The motels and hotels and other businesses that service air travelers, especially near airports and stuff, they lost money too. Well, because the airlines weren't selling enough and making enough money, they canceled their orders for new planes, right? They have a fleet. They have to maintain it. They have to replace planes that are ready to go out of service. But they canceled orders because they weren't flying as much. They were canceling flights. And that means airplane manufacturers like Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Airbus, they had to slow or stop their production and cancel their contracts with airplane parts, right? And I live in Connecticut, so Pratt& Whitney is a big airplane engine manufacturer. They had to halt their production and stop buying parts for their new engines that they were going to make for Boeing because Delta was going to buy a bunch of planes, but all those got canceled, right? So in effect, right, all the way down to like the parts and the machine shops that made the parts for Pratt & Whitney for the engines, all right, that demand, right, dropped precipitously because people didn't want to fly. So that's an example of derived demand. And then, of course, the other thing that derived demand says is that, well, let's watch the video first. So here is a commercial about milk.
We're out of milk.
Mister, up there.
I'm sorry, honey. Gotta go.
Don't you ever be sad. Lean on me when times are bad. Just hold
Milk. Ladies, gotta go to work.
So you might remember all the commercials. Milk has been done for milk, for your bones, why you should drink it, for better protein and stuff. And that's the one with the rock in it. Who do you think paid for that? Was it the supermarkets that sell the milk? Or the convenience stores like 7-Eleven? No, it wasn't. It was the Milk Board, which is supported by the dairy farmers. So what derived demand means that, hey, even though you don't sell to the end user, you can still advertise your brand and the end product to your target market to try to increase your sales. So DuPont, which is a large chemical manufacturer, they would advertise DuPont Stainmaster carpet. They don't make the carpet. The carpets are made in mills in North Carolina, South Carolina, and throughout the South. They just make the chemical that goes on it that protects it from stains. But they advertise that so that they could, sell more carpets with their material on it. So derived demand says wherever you are in the supply chain, hey, if we're having a problem selling leather because synthetic leather is getting so much better, we might run an ad campaign to say what are the benefits, how sexy it is when people wear it, how tough it is, how rugged, how it makes you feel. We're just making the spools of leather. We're just the processor. But if it has a positive effect on the end user, we'll benefit from those sales.